Thank you very much. And joining me now is the president of the Grenada Football Association, Mr. Cheney Joseph, who is basically no stranger to the discussion on football. But I want to introduce Mr. Joseph because we continue our discussion with the CONCACAF Gold Cup. And Mr. Cheney Joseph, who is in Houston, Texas, with the Grenada team, the Spice Boys, and would have seen the performance of Team Grenada against Honduras in the opening game of the CONCACAF Gold Cup, and would have seen Grenada against some of these Central American teams in previous tournaments and games. I want to hear from Mr. Joseph, first of all, the experience and in the context of how satisfied were you with the performance of Grenada against Honduras?
Good evening, Michael, and let me just quickly answer by saying my response to you has to be in the context of where we're moving with the game, whether or not we've moved anyway in terms of on-the-field play, notwithstanding there's another component, which is to deal with the results. From a result perspective, it's not the ideal result we wanted. However, if we were to examine the scoreline, you would see that goal number 1 was unfortunate, goal number 2 was unfortunate, and goal number 3 and 4 came about as a result of us trying to reduce or nullify the deficit. So in that context, there can be explanation for it. But I will say to you what I saw as a former footballer, not as the president, and as someone who was also coached at the highest level in Grenada. I am seeing improvement in the quality of football that's being played by Grenada national team. And I will go on record to say that this national team that played yesterday has probably produced one of the highest quality of football in regional football or international football, maybe in the last decade. And I don't want to offend any coach or anyone, but I will say to you, the last of that might have been around when Grenada played in the World Cup qualification against the US and Guyana and thereabout. I did not see it in the last 2 Gold Cup. And I will honestly say to you, when you can see a Grenada national team making 25 passes without the opponent touching the ball, when you can see a Grenada team after 30 minutes had 62% possession, when you can see a Grenada team in 30 minutes had 4 shots on goal and 3 corners, it says a lot about what we were doing. We just have to build on it. I recall Jamaica being down there. I recall others being similarly down there, and their game has changed to the next level. We are getting there. And so to answer you, last night provided hope. And I'm just hopeful that going forward, we can feel good about it. What I also saw last night were a great bit of patriotism and enthusiasm on the part of some players. I saw some players giving more than 100%. I want to use the opportunity to congratulate especially Benjamin Etienne on being recognized as the Fighting Spirit Award out of that game yesterday, the youngest player in the CONCACAF tournament in 2021. And I will let it be known to the general public, it's no secret because the players know. Already there has been expressions of interest in not just Benji, other players on this current national team as a result of performances seen last night. And so, I saw again Ollie Norban, someone we were pursuing for a long time, giving his all, even when he got injured, was willing to stay on the field and fight. Minus what happened yesterday, I think we're on the right track. The next thing we need to do is to get the results we want.
And getting the results is one, Cheney, but the momentum, because going into this tournament, I we were of the impression, and when I say we, the public didn't expect much of the Grenada team, okay? That's normally, and it goes based on history, okay? Based on history, based on recent performances, but it appears that Grenada really shocked CONCACAF, shocked the tournament, as you will see, coming up against Honduras, who is seeded the #1 team in the group. And no doubt, I'm hearing from the commentators and others that Grenada really gave Honduras something to think about, and they were not comfortable up to probably the first half.
I will go to you, minus what happened on the 52nd minute in the second half, as well as the 31st minute in the first half. You will recognize that up to 75 minutes of play, Grenada was into the game. So technically, the game was 0-0 because there were 2 human errors prior to that. All right? And I am telling you, you should watch how the celebration was for goal number 3 and 4 for the Honduran. The real celebration took place when they scored the 3rd and 4th goal. Michael, I want to say something and put it into perspective, because a lot of times we have experts who have no knowledge of what's happening in football, no knowledge of what we are doing in football, and we are our own enemies too. We are not telling people what we are doing in football. But let me just put it into perspective. In March 2019, Grenada was put on a lockdown. We were told all sporting activities must stop. And that continued for the rest of the year. We tried in November to get something started, and then there was some spike again. And then we were told no sporting activity, including our club football. So we couldn't play any international friendly. We're not the only one that was affected. Let's get that clear. But our national players couldn't train. And if they had to train, they had to train in their backyard. And they couldn't go out on the field. Our overseas players were locked down by the UK. All sporting activities were stopped. The US had its own issues. And so even when we had employed a coach in January of this year, it took him almost 4 months before he could have gotten to see football in Grenada or to see the players he had to coach. So all he was having is a set of sessions on the phone with his assistants, staff, and the rest of it. And so in that context, if you think of what we saw last night, with a group of amateurs mainly, blended with some professionals from the UK who didn't have a chance to play as much, because the UK season we started, I think, in February, March, to finish off the season. And there was even a time when they said, let's call it off and let all teams benefit from promotion, that kind of nonsense. If you look at it from that perspective, you would say, wow, I wonder what is it has been done by the coaching staff and others to get the team to look the way it looked last night. And so in that context, I will say to you, we were adhering to all protocols. We wished to have gone back on the playing field. We could not. And so what we have achieved in under 3 months is good. Even if you compare it with what we did in the World Cup qualification, and you see what happened a month after, you can see where we're headed. I know how Grenadians are and may feel about the errors of both humans, the errors of the referee, the errors of the coach. I mean, not the coach, sorry, the goalkeeper. But I think we have to look at the bigger picture. We know where we're going, and we feel like we're getting there.
Yeah, but I'm talking about going there because the important aspect after the tournament is how can Grenada continue on a momentum? How can they improve on whatever comes out of the tournament, whether they make it to the next round, the quarterfinal round, or whether they are knocked out, but how can they improve? on performances, and therefore it depends a lot too on the technical department, the program, having the players who had the experience here at the Gold Cup tournament. Those who have expressed interest, I spoke to the deputy chair of the technical committee of the Grenada Football Association, Mr. Bowser Wilson, that's Norris Bowser Wilson, and he was lamenting the fact that there's no way that Grenada can participate in a tournament as the CONCACAF Gold Cup with only local-based players. There must be a mixture. You must have experienced players. And he is also lamenting the fact that the GFA has to continue looking for the experienced Grenadian players overseas. As he said, look at all the other teams and you will see the experienced players, the mixture of experience and local-based players. And thus he is lamenting the fact that the football will improve when you have the overseas-based players competing with the local-based players in a tournament like that. In terms of the GFA, what do you think about that?
Michael, let me admit something to you. Dependent on where you go and what time you have and energy you have, you'll never be able to satisfy some people with this. But I will say something honestly to you. We can't compare the team now with a team in 1989 or 2009 or whenever. It's two different eras. Notwithstanding, I'll just share with you the harsh reality. Grenada is one of the last horses out of the stable. However, I hope we can catch up and be amongst the top if the race continues at the pace it goes. And hear what I mean by that. Whether or not we like it, I want us to look at this thing called homegrown and overseas-based players in the context of football and where the country wants to go. The first mindset we have to change, Michael, is whether we will continue to play football in Grenada, recreational. And when I say recreational, some guys go to work, but they come back. If they feel like training, they train with their club, and then they come and they represent their club, and then at the end of it, the next game they play, and then they say they want $30,000 or $40,000. Or if we will seriously have a discussion on how to introduce some kind of football whereby at least 200 footballers in Grenada will be gainfully employed and be training only about football and will take the sport serious, and the coaches who are coaching them will be at the highest level. I've had the privilege last night of speaking to Jason Robert, myself and Jerry Alexis, and our discussion was about coaching education and how we can improve on opportunities for players. So in answering you, let me just help your viewers and listeners look at it. The English-based team has maybe about 40% of 50% of their players based in the UK that played against Italy. You look at the Brazilian team or the Argentine team who were in the finals of the Copa America, and you probably would find out that the percentage is less. 90% of the players for both teams are playing, whether it's in Portugal, the UK, Spain, Italy, France, Germany, those kind of places. You look at the Jamaica national football team, and you probably will not get more than about 20% of the team as players playing in the Jamaica Football Federation League. Trinidad and Tobago, who is playing in the Gold Cup, they will tell you there are 4 players on the 23-man squad that are physically based in Trinidad, and some of them are there because they just recently lost a contract. Michael, whether or not we like it, if we want to really address the issue about the so-called home-based, foreign-based, this is how you have to look at it. Let us pray that our teams will start performing well and that our ranking will cause people to start saying, I believe there's some talent in Grenada other than Trinidad and Suriname and Curacao and Jamaica, right? The other context in which you want to see it is like what has already started for a player like Benji or even Shavon John Brown. Or I will go even further. Even some of the so-called overseas-based players have now attracted the eyes of other persons or other clubs. When you have that, it changes the psyche of players in that area. Let's use as an example, when Queen's Park Rangers was doing well, weren't we producing more and more players because everybody wanted to play for Queen's Park Rangers? The same will happen if we can take Grenada football to the next level. Last point on your question, and I want to answer it, and I tend to get reactions because I sometimes introduce the topic without spending time on it, but I will not spend much time, but I'll answer you this way, Michael. I am saying to all of these coaches and clubs in Grenada, put structures in place that you and your club have an intermediary, let's call it an agent, whereby you can start promoting your player overseas and that your player gets a contract and that you benefit from compensation for training compensation because the player was with you from since age 12 and he's now playing professional football in the UK, France, wherever, or even in the US and USL and MLS. Instead, stop pointing your finger and say, what GFA doing for them? GFA is the parent body, and what the parent body has a responsibility to do, and a lot of people don't seem to know it, is to create avenues for players to promote themselves, such as domestic competition, national teams competition, grassroots program, youth development program. The responsibility for an individual player, whether it's exposure or otherwise, is also the responsibility of a club. So I will take licks by using Queen's Park Rangers as an example. Those who's in Queen's Park Rangers will say, what GFA doing for us? What GFA doing for us? I am saying, ask yourself, what did you ever do for the player that is representing you, that he's still playing for you after 10 years and not making even one little stride to go to Trinidad? If the club is developing players, what you would find is maybe every 2, 3, 4 years, 2, 3, or 4 players from Queen's Park Rangers get a break and they go off to somewhere where they start getting paid, and then the cycle continues. I forgot to mention, Trishon Thomas, the goalkeeper for Queen's Park Rangers, he's another player that I am certain will make it big. And even though these 2 players did not travel, I'm talking about 2 others, Leon Braveboy and Stephon Abraham. These are 4 players I will say to you, and there's one named Keyshawn Clark. These players are players I am telling you in under 2 years will play professional football, some parts of Grenada, some part of the world. But I am challenging the clubs that they represent. Because you don't know, allow those who know to assist you to get these players exposed so that your club will benefit from it, and stop playing politics with the football. So I say all of that to tell you this thing about overseas buses. I got a message today asking me how you expect the team to do well and as a set of overseas players. Well, I tell that person, go and look at the German football team, the Italian football team, France. Go and look at all successful international teams and tell me how much of them is homegrown and playing in the domestic competition. BS. Sorry for saying so.
Well, I think Bowser Wilson was correct when he, even without really asking him that, he alluded to the fact that, that there's no way that a locally based Grenada team can participate in a tournament as the CONCACAF Gold Cup. There's no team in the CONCACAF Gold Cup that you can point a finger and talk about locally based. And Cheney, it's so unfortunate that every time around this time with some tournament or something, so we get these, I call it old talk from my part, because you don't, and these are people
call these talk ali.
I see, I know where you're going. And these it's so unfortunate that, as I call them, Facebook coaches, social media coaches. Yeah, but on the, you willing to say something again?
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing though, Michael.
Yeah.
As you say, the Facebook coaches, I saw a few in the last day and a half. I want to just share one with you, Michael. I heard someone say, what they're doing with FIFA money. Well, let me just tell the persons what has been happening for the last 10 years. Prior to becoming the president of the GFA, what we had was a first division, a second division, and a Premier League, and that's it. And every year, that's what's going on. First division, second division, and Premier League. What has happened in the last 10 years is as follows, Michael. We got resistance when we first tried it. They said, why would we want to do a U19 competition when in fact the same 19-year-old is playing for the Premier League? We say no. That's not a clear player pathway for any club, and in fact you are hurting your club by not allowing this to happen. So we introduced U19 first. Then we came and we said U15. Then we came and we say U13 and U10. So now each club who has a real desire to promote itself now has, instead of 23 players playing for its so-called senior team, now know that he has 23 players on the U19 that could eventually graduate to the senior team, U17, U15, U13, U10. So a club that used to have only 23 players to choose from now, Michael, 23 by minimum 5, that's 105 3 15, 115 players to choose from over the next few years. That's one idea. That's the male. Now we have introduced girls football. A few clubs have taken on board, but it's expanding. Now we have U15 girls football coming, and we will have U20 girls football also. So we are expanding on the amount of players and a proper player pathway. So someone said, well, what happened to all doing nothing on grassroots? We say this is what has been happening. Some people don't seem to remember. Lester Smith was once the technical director, and there was a steady grassroots program from when I got in 2010 until about 2016, 17, somewhere there. And then Vin Blaine took over, and Vin Blaine introduced something, but there were some challenges with it. And now Jerry Alexis is identifying opportunities to help clubs and academies, and we are distributing uniform. If you go right around Grenada now, Michael, for those who keep talking and what are they doing for football, all they doing this, that, the other. Right around the football on a weekend especially, you will see a minimum of about 60 grassroots program, whether academy, clubs, or otherwise, functioning with a minimum of about 20, 30 kids. And these kids are all excited about the way forward. So they're now looking forward to playing U10, U13, U15, U17, U20. Michael, let me just go a little further because it's important. Sometimes I don't get the audience to do it, and sometimes I don't even have the time. In case some people don't even recognize or don't recall, Jamal Charles is 23. Listen to me good. Cedrel Lewis is 22. Trishan Thomas is 18. Benjamin Etienne is 18. Ronaldo Joseph is 18. Minus 10 years from these guys' age, Michael. All the players I just called for you are just an extract. I could tell you about Brady Charles. I could tell you about Brady Charles. I could tell you about Josh. I could tell you about Christian James, many others. Minus 10 years from any of those age, I tell you. Minus 10 years. So if Christian is 21, it means that Christian at age 10 when I became president, he was 10. And you can see his maturity. Jamal Charles and others. What clubs and others have to see is that the fruits of your labor will be shown in time. And Jamal, Cedrel, and others that I mentioned before, these clubs must recognize what has been produced from their efforts. And so I'm saying all of that just to say to you, the responsibility to grow and develop players is not the GFA. The GFA is there to facilitate the growth. The clubs are there. I'll make two last points on the question that was asked. Michael, every club in the GFA receives financial support. 15,000 now, and I will make it expose it as big as it should be. 20,000 from next year. Every club in Grenada, GFA club, sorry. Every parish conference, receives 25,000. Parish conference, they get 25,000. Yeah, and still parish competitions, they get a little 6,000. These are money going directly into those clubs. What we need to find out is what each of these clubs are doing with the money when they receive it. So when people talk about GFA, we hand down to the clubs, and the clubs must now account for what they are doing with the money they receive from the GFA, which is aimed at developing the football in their constituency or in their parish or in their community, whatever you call it. I just thought I would make that reference so you would understand when people talk, maybe because we don't say what happens in the GFA. Every single club in the GFA, every academy in the GFA received uniform, 25 pieces each, a whole set, high brand name, Mafro, less than a year, 2 years ago, brand name uniform. Besides that, every single club in the GFA receives football, agility ladder, markers, cones, and other support. I'm not talking about the training of their coaches too, which has a dollar value and some people don't see it. So when people talk and they say all kind of things, I will say to them, in the last 10 years, clubs have received monetarily more than before. And I will say to you, the prize money has gone up because when I became president, the prize money for the winning club was $10,000. They can go back and look at the records to see it. The winning prize money for our club now is 45, and I'm proposing that we go to 100,000.
So, therefore, you open another can of worms there, because it means that we hear so many times about accountability and transparency with the GFA. But now there seems to be a question of accountability and transparency among the clubs
at the club
themselves.
level. At the club level.
At the club level, yeah. At the club
I will
level.
say to you what I will say to the players and the people in the community following all these clubs. We can start with, you see, I'm proudly wearing, I don't know if you can see, Kestrel. That's
yeah.
one of the companies I represent. And sorry, my apologies. My former club is Queen's Park Rangers. Sorry for barring my face for a while. I had to show it. Yeah. But anyhow, Michael, what I'm basically saying to you is we need to get each of these clubs now being accountable for what they have been doing with the money that they receive from GFA.
Well, while I get you back into my shot, Cheney, it's rather important of what you're saying there now, because I know the whole issue of club licensing is very important to the GFA as well, and especially in the scheme of things with the CONCACAF Gold Cup and the possibility and possibilities of players, for example, receiving a contract, or the clubs, coaches expressing an interest in a player. One of the first things they will want to know is, the club that he represents, and who is his agent, all these sort of things. And it therefore comes into focus, the whole issue of club licensing. And I know the GFA and you yourself, as president, a strong proponent of the club licensing program. And although there has been, a lot of critics and a lot of pushback from some in Grenada regarding that club licensing issue, my hope is that, they will see the opportunities that are available. While you're on the program, it's probably an opportunity for you to tell me what is the whole issue regarding club licensing at the GFA now.
Right. So let me just say to you, Michael, Club licensing is a necessary thing. It is a yardstick used by FIFA and CONCACAF to establish whether or not each individual club is really growing and functioning. So, for example, the anticipation by FIFA and CONCACAF is that there is a player pathway for players. Clubs are functioning with a functioning executive. They have bank account. They are not registered as not-for-profit body. They do monthly P&L. They do quarterly financial. They provide the membership with an annual financial report. The assumption by CONCACAF and FIFA also is that these clubs are having executive meetings once a month, quarterly meetings with their membership every 3 months, and that the membership are not just given oral reports, but there are documentary reports on it. The assumption by FIFA and CONCACAF is that when a club is represented at the GFA General Council, the membership of that club would have met with the representative of that club, and that representative is not going there in his own interest, but he's going there representing the views expressed not by just the executive of that club, but by the membership of that club. Let us make the assumption that I was the president of Queen's Park Rangers. When I go to GFA council meeting, I am not going there to represent myself. I am going there to represent the views of the executive and the views of the members of that club, including the players. I am not too sure if that is the case, but I am using this program to say to players, just like how the General Council tries to hold the executive accountable, because they say it's the clubs, it's the clubs, the clubs. You hold these administrators accountable also, and make sure that the views they come into the GFA with is views expressed by you guys. I wouldn't call a club name, but I'll share with you something. And the youth man or youth men who ran into me not too long ago will tell you, I said to them, well, we'll find a way to fix it. A prominent club in Grenada, I saw two of the youth men in a construction site. I was working. And the man says, sir, we can't get 2 balls. I say, well, who are you and what club you're playing for? He said, well, I'm playing for Michael Bascom Club. I said, but we gave Michael Bascom Club balls, we gave them equipment, and we gave them monies under both COVID and club development. He says, sir, let me just tell you that. The club have 1 ball. He said, it's about 30 of us that has been training. And we don't know who is the president, the vice president, the secretary, the treasurer of our club. I said, but no, we can fix that. So then what you should do is get your players, all of them, and then one day tell the coach, coach, we want to meet the management of the club, and let's start the process. So the youth man left inspired, and he said, well, sir, I didn't know how this thing would. I thought, well, if they just pick us, we just get a game, and then we just leave and go. I said, no. People collect a lot of things on your behalf, and you need to know how they use it. And that's one. I didn't call a club name deliberately, Michael, but that's a true story, and it's less than 2 weeks ago. Yeah? Less than 2 weeks ago. I say all of that to say to you, clubs now have to put their, in fact, we have some very good people on the club licensing body. I think people like Lyndon Charles, Brian Joseph, Petifa, Lewis, Jason Skeet, Mr. Andrew, Lennox Andrew. He has some good people on the club licensing body, and I've told the general secretary that we cannot be receiving these kinds of monies from FIFA and CONCACAF and not having our club licensing program in place. In fact, I will say to you openly that as we speak, I have indicated to my general secretary that we must get these people active because, by the way, in August, the GFA will be audited. And I know one of the consideration that could come up is those people who've been receiving your monies, do you have an idea how they've been using it? And have they been accounting for receiving it and how they used it? And so the club licensing help monitor that also, Michael, because there is an opportunity for the club licensing committee to do what we call sporadic check. Just visit a club and say, in short notice, we will be there. We want to meet with your executive. We want to see your books. We want to see your financial statements. We want to see minutes of your last 2-3 meetings. You know, those kind of things. Can we see your bank account? In fact, one of the things I will just mention too, and we have worked closely with FIU to try and ease the problem of clubs. Do you know, Michael, that every single club in GFA that receives money from us as a not-for-profit organization has an obligation to do an annual return?
And that should be so because of the size of money, the amount of money they're receiving, right?
Right. And do you know, and some people don't even know that, do you know we have proposed to FIU, we can assist you, FIU, by being a sub-regulator, and you will regulate us. So we will hold these clubs accountable instead of you punishing them, because the truth is anyone who is in violation, they quickly will withdraw the articles of incorporation, making them not-for-profit bodies. And therefore, the GFA cannot issue money to someone or an organization that is not registered as a not-for-profit. Many of our clubs have not done any filing of return in years. And we talk big and we go on social media and beat up on people. And you will be surprised, Michael, most of the persons who make all kinds of remark, they are the ones that's most guilty of it. Michael, I just want to say one last thing, because I know I will have to beg you to come back on your program, because I know you told me it was only 10 minutes you're giving me.
No, don't say that. Don't say that.
I say that in the context. I say that in the context that you want to make your program always short and relevant. You know, I know you don't really like, well, according to them people, you don't have time for banter and all talk. Michael, one other thing I want to say to you, and it's important, and very, very important. I am saying to all single clubs in Grenada, focus on development of players and institution. Focus on development of player and institution. And then you will see the benefits of your organization and the efforts you have. I want to offer one last advice, Michael. Sorry, I don't want to claim that I am, a quarry of resources, but I believe I have a good bit of boulders. Mike, I want to suggest to every single club that receives money from the GFA from next year, January the 1st, when they get at $20,000. Yeah? Mm-hmm. From January the 1st, all clubs getting $20,000. They say we don't do a lot, so we have to start being transparent and say what we're giving. So it's $20,000 again. It won't affect sponsorship because they now have 5 and 10 teams to prepare. And that's one of the excuses they could use to the sponsors. But one of the things I have as a recommendation to all the clubs, purchase a little, Michael, you're an expert, so you will tell them what is the exact name. Whether it's a Minolta, what's them other names, brand names, camera?
Well, it could be whether it's Canon or, right, whatever, Samsung.
Michael, buy one with the ability to do a little zoom in where you can get professional photos from 100 feet, 200 feet off. But you can go also in an elevated position and film a match and edit it, meaning get some little youth man to play as edit, and you pay the youth man $25 every match you play. You're not playing more than 40 games a year. So 25 divided by 40, that's how much? That's just about $1,000 you might get?
Yeah, roughly.
Right. So you get that youth man to edit every game you play, and all your good players, you do some short video clips. And so when Cheney and others keep getting called, who is the next midfielder that is the big thing out of Grenada, we don't have to struggle. I'm dealing on behalf of 5 youth men right now. I won't call the name. And the very first thing 3 of the agents asked me is, can you send me a video of each of them? Thank God 2 had instantly. Tomorrow, your program is aired on Thursday, right? So anyhow, this week, it's proper to say this way. This week, I am having telephone conversations with 2 additional agents, one in Europe, one in the US. And I'm praying to God that it's some good news or some great opportunities that will lend itself. Before you cut me off, I want to say to Ronaldo Joseph, to Brian Joseph and his family, congratulations on Ronaldo, who has represented Grenada at U15, U17, U20, U23. He's gotten a scholarship, a partial scholarship, and I will use this opportunity to openly say that the Grenada Football Association will give support to Ronaldo to ensure that his bachelor's degree he's pursuing in the US, he will get support from us, because we anticipate in 4 years' time he will be about 21. I mean, sorry, not 21, 23. We anticipate he will most likely be playing football still, maybe, who knows, MLS player. And we would not want to feel like we never gave support to him. The same I want to say about the other good players that we know throughout the country. I want us to continue to give support to them. There are some I learned of in St. Andrew who are doing very well in school, and their parents are experiencing some challenges financially. When I return home, I want to be able to have that discussion with the persons who told me about it. And I've already told the technical director and the GenSec, we're going to identify those that we heard of and have a meeting with them and their parents and see how GFA can lend financial support monthly to make sure these kids not only play football, but don't struggle with schoolwork because they don't have a good meal or a good place to rest their head. That's the way forward, Michael.
Yeah, well, glad to know that social responsibility of the GFA as well, because it's also empowering the human capital, of the GFA, and it's not just playing football, but an opportunity for them, in terms of a way of life. But importantly, though, Cheney is coming out of this Gold Cup tournament. What, as president of the GFA, is your hope and probably the biggest thing you want to see coming out of that tournament for Grenada and for players in particular in the tournament? And I'm talking about the Grenada team, right?
Okay. I don't know how it started, but I want to mention this to you. I saying we, meaning the GFA, even though I might be the only person in the GFA with the information at present. We are in discussion with 3 MLS organizations who have expressed an interest to discuss potential partnership agreement whereby there might be players who might be recruited for their League 2 team. The US is introducing from next year. I forgot the name of the exact thing, but it's like a place where they will be doing training for players who are potentially MLS players. Right? So I don't want to sound stupid, so allow me to say that way still. So we are having such a conversation with 3 MLS clubs. In addition to that, we have already received a series of inquiry from college coaches about players. That's before we played our first game yesterday. But what I'm basically saying to you, I am hopeful that Benji's performance and others like Benji will create the break we always wanted for Grenadian footballers to go and play football, even if it is in USL or MLS or a league below that, something that will change their life forever. I am also hopeful that 1 or 2 of our homegrown players who play will impress enough that they will get a chance to play some kind of professional football somewhere. I'm hoping that, and now you're going to laugh at me, our next 2 games will be win, and we would have made it to the quarterfinal stage. And then I'm hopeful also that our referee, Rayon Radix, has a good tournament and he doesn't make any blunders with VAR or anything, and that he also will get an opportunity to possibly go on a short list for the World Cup in Qatar. These are my wish for now. In terms of our local clubs and the rest of the players at home, I'm hoping that we will be able to find a medium ground. And I like what I heard. I didn't hear him personally, but somebody told me. Desmond Noel said, well, increase the prize money and then bring all the clubs to play in one venue. These are the discussions I hope we could continue with, and we move away from the tongue country thing. Oh, Michael, I just tell you, on an average, the national team goes to train from the hotel, the Grenada national team, right? It takes them about 30 minutes to get to the training venue, right? And if you ask me about distance, real distance from let's say the stadium in Grenada, they go and train probably in Guave or maybe Maran. You hear me?
Yes, I heard that. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just opening up your eyes to talk about.
Yeah, I understand the perspective in which you yeah, and obviously the discussion will continue because you propose, should I say propose or just your opinion that the Premier League in Grenada reiterated that the Premier League in Grenada should be staged in one venue, and as you suggested, it should be the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. There are those who disagree with that. Yeah, they disagree with that for reasons. They say that their argument to some, although some just disagree, but they cannot put forward an argument, is that they don't see it developing Grenada football. You provided a backup for your argument, for your position, rather, I should say, even though it's just an idea that you threw out. And there are many people who also support the idea and support the reasons why, but there are those, as many times in Grenada, people just, social media, so you have the opportunity to oppose, you have the opportunity to just say things without even giving reasons why. I for one, Cheney, I would prefer to have a discussion with people who can, give their reasons why they think it cannot work than just saying it's nonsense, and it's sad because, and I'm prepared to facilitate a discussion with you as the proponent and those who oppose as well.
Michael, let me just, I have 3 last things I want to say before you wrap up.
You have the time to say. We have probably another 10 minutes. Yeah.
Right. So let me just, 3 things I want to say because I think it's relevant, right? One is, Michael, not much Grenadians under the age of 35 might know that gentleman. A gentleman named Eric Matthew Gary?
Sir Eric Matthew Gary.
Right. Mm-hmm. There is a next one. A lot of people may not know about him, but I think there's a little bit more literature about him, named Maurice Bishop. I'm just staying in Grenada, right? And these 2 people, according to who you speak to, they'll tell you they were the worst persons. They had limited ideas. They suppressed people and the rest of it. But I'm almost certain if you follow up today, people who never knew him, they have the best thing to say to you. And guess what they say? They say, because the truth was not told. Just the other day, I heard one person said on GBN, I think it was, they Europeanize, I hope I said the word good, they Europeanize the history of the Caribbean so much that black people never did anything good. Everything that was done good was by a white man named Christopher Columbus and Sir Francis Drake and whatever. And they say it was so much great black people who created history. Oh, I think it was Bob, Dr. Bob, my friend, was saying that. So that one I want you to say, and you will understand the perspective from which I say it sometime in the future, not today. The second thing I want to say to you, Michael, it's relevant, and please understand the last thing you were talking about. The Ministry of Sport in 1976, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82 was responsible for primary school football. You heard what I said?
Yeah.
The Ministry of Sport. Anyhow, some people said, no, that's a responsibility of education. And from then on, primary school football started going down, 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 down. Now it doesn't happen. Now it hasn't happened in a while. When I was there, but 11 or 12, I probably played like about 12 games for primary school for St. George's Government School. Because we played against Springs, we played against Manjalu RC, we played against Vendom, Bolio RC, Happy Hill, J.W. Fletcher. Well, it wasn't, yeah, J.W. Fletcher was the name of the school. Palmer, St. George's Anglican, and the rest of it. And then the winners will play against the different parishes and everything. Today, a primary school plays 3 games and they reach in the final. Hear me out. And that primary school player spends 2 years only in primary school from when he's introduced to football. So he plays 6 games. And then when he goes to secondary school, he plays in a zone tournament for his school, 4 games, and if he makes the final, 6. So by the time he reaches 17, Michael, he doesn't even reach 40 games yet, and we want him to be the next Ronaldo, Romario, Zidane, or whoever. These are the things we need to look at and see how we could change them for the better if we had to talk seriously about football. And then the last point I want to make to you, it's controversial, but I think I can make it. I feel I have the mental and other fortitude to be able to stand up on it. Until such time that the powers that be stop seeing sport as recreational or seeing the GFA as the recipient of big money, when even the money that it receives is not sufficient to meet a required annual budget, the conversation you and I will have here today will be held in 10 years' time and possibly 20 years' time, and Grenada football will be the same thing. And here what we're going to hear. Boy in 19 this, and boy in 2000 and this, and in 2020, the team was better than that, and the team was better than that, and no evidence of that. But yet for we'll be probably in the same position. So I'm saying it's a collective effort where the powers that be in all these places, whether conversation between Ministry of Education, Ministry of Sports, the government of Grenada, the GFA, and everyone else, included administrators at club level, decide on where they really want football, and if they want to stop talking these amateur talk or social media experts, then we'll be wasting time. And I hope your listeners and viewers will appreciate what I'm saying, even if some of them don't like what I'm saying.
Well, I want to thank you for that. And as always, Cheney, always with what is believed to be some sort of controversial issue. I didn't believe that the whole issue of your suggestion that the Premier League should be staged in the Kirani James Athletic Stadium should be taken, as a controversial issue. It was a suggestion. I assume, Cheney, for something like that, council will have to make a decision. Okay, am I correct? No. The executive could make a decision on that.
And again, if we look at articles, the statute, Michael, if we look at the GFA statute, you'll see the areas of authority, and there are certain responsibility of council. Council is there to approve certain things, and the executive is there pretty much as a policy maker. I will say to you 2 examples. FIFA did not have to ask us for permission to prepare its regulation. It did it. However, when it wanted to increase the amount of players from, teams, from 24 to 32 to now 48 coming up, they had to get the approval of council. We are not increasing or decreasing the amount of teams participating in a competition. We are simply determining the venue, which is one of the responsibility of the executive. We can't tell CONCACAF, and we could not have told CONCACAF that these games should not be played in Houston, Kansas, and whatever. And by the way, CONCACAF, we have a lot of Grenadians in Brooklyn. Why don't we play it in Boys and Girls High? Because you are depriving us. We have not much Grenadians in Texas. Yeah? You're taking away from our people. We have almost 75,000 Grenadians in New York and Canada. That's closer to them. Why you want to move the game away from Grenadians in the diaspora? Give it some thought, Mike.
So are you saying, Mr. Joseph, that there's a possibility that what you suggest in there may be the reality? That the game
I will answer you. So if we have a firm, decisive, forward-minded group of individuals who are called the board of directors, all on the same page, it will happen. Now, granted, it may happen while I'm not there.
Okay, so it may boil down to being a bit partisan, knowing that the GFA politics. Okay,
that's where the problem is right now. Mike, we close with this statement back on the Premier League. I'm going to spend 1 minute, if you allow me.
Thank you. It okay? Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Right. Mike, here, one of many solutions. I'm not giving them my top one, but giving you one. We have 10 Premier League clubs. So that means currently it's only 18 matches that are played. And on average, a club pays about $350, not all, for transport to a venue. When Rangers playing, come on, there's no transportation costs. Yeah? When Riversally, or you call them, Hard Rock playing Eagles, it's about half that cost. When Shantimel playing Montrich, is about half that cost. Yeah? So when people talk, there are others at this place. Montrich don't get to play no game in Montrich, a Premier League game. Hard Rock don't get to play in their home ground. Hard Rock home ground, as far as I was told, is not four now, the next one. What do you call it? Don't tell me I'm forgetting it already.
Moncraven?
Latas.
Oh, Latas. Oh, okay.
Right. Or Riversally. Shantimel home ground is in Shantimel.
Shantimel, right.
All of them playing, and their spectators are deprived. Yeah? You hear me? Hurricane home ground, according to what we know, is Alston George Park. Premier League games don't play there. So the people of St. Mark's are not deprived. But here was the solution. Play a Premier League, play a 2 rounds of competition there, increase your prize money, subsidize the transport, but increase other competitions so that Hurricane could still play in a knockout or a zonal competition in the same home ground. So the spectators still will get to see a game or two. And when I say a game or two, you could design it in such a way that other than the Premier League, your knockout round may be zonal and they could play it in those smaller fields until they get to the semi-final and final. Last point, and Wagi, don't get vexed with me. You need to start spreading the Wagi T Super Knockout and play it closer to every club venue. so that they are not deprived, because you are depriving the fans in the area. Food for thought.
But if you making that suggestion to Wagiti,
no, I'm not making that suggestion. I'm saying the inconsistency.
Okay,
that's what I'm doing.
But then at the same breath, people might say, well, then why are you suggesting or proposing that the Premier League be played at one venue? I
was just showing the inconsistency. But anyhow, I don't agree with Wagiti tournament moving from the one venue or 2 or 3 venues he's been using. And I'm saying the same, I believe, could happen with the GFA. But I'm telling you, the reason why St. Kitts and Antigua football is seemingly, domestic football is seeming a lot better than us, is because of the hard decision they took to centralize their football. And I will go by saying, yes, we can increase the prize money to 100,000. Not that GFA have it, but we can find ways to make it. You can have a 50,000 up front and your gate receipt. You make sure you save 50,000 from your gate receipt. So the winner gets 100,000. The second place team gets less than 60% of that amount. Meaning, the second place team might get about 60,000. And every other team thereafter, they get smaller amounts until the last team that's going down to the lower division. However, you, the GFA, holding 100% of all gate receipts for these matches.
Well, fair enough, Mr. Joseph. Well, it has been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure chatting with you. I want to thank you for being on the program this evening. We not just the CONCACAF Gold Cup, a lot of domestic football and matters, I should say, regarding the Grenada Football Association. Always a pleasure talking to you, President of the Grenada Football Association, Mr. Cheney Joseph. I want to thank you very much for being on the program. Cheney?
Thank you.
Okay.
All of us.
Okay, thank you very much. Folks, Mr. Cheney Joseph, the President of the Grenada Football Association, our program. And that's our program for this evening. I thank you. And do remember to join me on the weekend. That's on Saturday, God's willing, for another in our Talk Sports program. I'm Michael Bascom, and good evening.